Hello there, it's Cassie, and welcome back for another Heffy Doodle video. I'm going to be making a card today using Stencil to make two different backgrounds, but let's talk about the products we're going to be using today. This is the Perfect Day along with the matching die set. All these products are brand new to Heffy Doodle, and I will have those listed in the description box down below. This is the Skinny Metric Rectangle Frames die, which is so cool. And then last but not least, we have the Crazy Kaleidoscope Stencil, which I will be using along with a Ken Oliver Color Burst to make two different kinds of backgrounds. I have some ARTEZA Expert Watercolor paper, and I'm going to stick this on top of my Waffle Flower Media Mat. But before I do that, I'm going to take my stencil and I'm going to put that into my makeshift splatter box and spray some Pixie Spray all over that background, or all over that stencil, so that it'll be a little bit tacky on one side. And you definitely want to do that in a well-ventilated area. So I'm just going to make sure that's dry, and then I'm going to stick that down onto my stencil. And then I am going to take my Ken Oliver Color Burst, and I'm going to just lightly tap the bottom. And it doesn't look like I'm doing much, but you will see when I get ready to spritz it with water, the magic that happens. So I'm just taking a distress sprayer and spritzing water all over that. And it still doesn't look like a whole lot right now until I remove the stencil, and you'll see what it does. So it looks really cool. I love using the color bursts on the stencils. And then I'm also going to just take it and I'm going to flip it over onto another piece of watercolor paper. And then I'll just take a cloth and make sure that I have that down, so that way when I peel it back, I have a beautiful image. So this is what I was talking about, making two backgrounds just using that one stencil. Isn't that cool? I love that. And now I'm going to move on to doing some stamping. So like I said, I'm using the Perfect Day stamp set. I love this stamp set. I am clearly very into cats right now. I have two new ones of my own. So for all of you that are new and don't know that, I recently got one cat, and then a few weeks after that, we went ahead and adopted his brother. So I'm stamping this onto some Neenah Classic Crest Solar White cardstock, and I use Memento Tuxedo Black ink, which is a Copic-friendly ink. And here are the cats that I colored, just kind of trying to find a key of different colors combinations that I wanted to use. And so I suggest that when you're coloring, and then hang on to those and you'll have a reference for later. I am using colors V17 on my cat tree along with V09. And you know, I would absolutely love it if they made cat trees in different colors rather than the random beige or gray. I just feel like this would be so much fun. And you know what? Maybe they do, but I'm kind of a new cat mom as far as cat trees go. And so I've never actually looked, but if that were out there, man, I don't know. I'd probably have to indulge and buy one. Anyway, moving on to my coloring. So I started with V17, and then I moved on to my darker shade, which was V09, and then I'm going to come back in with my V17 to just kind of bring that color out a little bit. And I'm doing that all over, and then I'll even go back in with the V09 one more time to add just some darker areas where it had sort of dried. And then I'm going to color the little scratching posts. So I'm using W4. I don't put that on the screen right now, but it's W4, which I will use later on for the cats. And then I'm going to use the W6 for some shading on the sides of the poles. And then I'll use E50 for the actual like jute or scratcher. And then we'll move on to coloring our little kitties. So this first kitty I am going to color like my newest baby. And I'm coloring this to be a blue point Siamese. So I will put down a wash of E50 for all of the cats. And then I am going to add some W6 to the points, or some W4. We'll start off with our lighter W. And I'm putting that just on his little paws, his tail, right on his face and his ears. And then I'll come out in with a little bit more W6 to darken up some of those areas. And then I'll go back over that with that W4 one more time. And then one more time again with the E50. Now, I colored 3 kitties because there's a little story behind this. I had one of the kittens before. His name is Max. And then my mother-in-law came into town. She fell in love with Max. We found out 2 of his brothers were still available, so we adopted them as well. And she took home Ari, which would be my little middle kitten here that I'm coloring. She took home Ari to where they live, and we had Max, and now we have Miles, which is the blue point. These are 2 seal points that I'm coloring because if you know me at all, that's what I do. And I'm just coloring those in with the colors up on the screen, and then I'll bring in that E50 to soften up those edges just a little bit more. And now I'll pull in the matching dies. So I did, as you can tell, stamped them twice because I'm making 2 cards, and I colored them twice. And now I'm going to put the matching dies over the top and just tack those down with some washi tape just to make sure that everything stays where it's supposed to stay before I run it through my die cutting machine. And then when I have everything tacked down, we will run that through the die cutting machine. And check that out. I love how that cuts out those little pieces from the cat tree as well. And then this little kitten, his little paws. So you could put things inside of his paws, which is so cool. And then we'll get ready to start doing a little bit more die cutting. So this cardstock that I have there, that purple cardstock, was cut down to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. So it'd be the perfect size of an A2. And then I'm going to trim down my watercolor panels so that they will have a small border when I put those on top of the purple panel. That purple panel is called Plum Pudding cardstock, and that is from Heffy Doodle. And I'm going to put the skinny metric rectangle frame right over the top of that. I ran that through my die cutting machine, and the result is that you'll have this skinny little frame. You'll also have this rectangle cut out of the center, and then I'll have this nice big border that I'm going to end up attaching my panel to. So I'm not wasting any cardstock, and it's really nice. So I'll use my liquid glue to adhere this down to my card base or card panel there. And then I'm also going to take my reverse tweezers to hold this little skinny frame, and then I'll use that same liquid glue and put liquid glue all over that back frame just in dots because I don't want it too much of it seeping out the back. And then I will attach this down to the front of my card, and then it just looks cool. It just gives it this nice little border, kind of breaks it up a little bit. And then I'm going to set that off to the side and start adhering my little kitties to their cat tree. I'll use a little bit of that liquid glue on the bottom of this little guy's feet. And then I want him to be poking through like he's sleeping inside of the tree. So I'm going to trim off some of his bum. And then I'll put a little bit of glue on the one side to attach him down. I don't need a bunch because I plan to use some foam tape. But I'll just stick that over the top of our little sleeping kitty. And then for my final little guy at the bottom, who looks like he's playing with the little ball hanging down, I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on that one edge. Again, that's enough because I plan to put some foam tape all over the back of my little kitties and their little cat tree. Now I'll peel off all of that release paper that I put down, which I did put down quite a bit, so I didn't want it to sag in any areas. And then I'll attach that to the front of my card. And then I'll get ready to start stamping my sentiment. So my sentiment, I'm going to stamp onto some Oreo Crunch cardstock from Heffy Doodle. I used a magic powder bag over the bottom of that so that I don't get embossing powder where I don't want it. I'll ink up my sentiment with some VersaMark ink. I'm doing that twice because I'm making 2 cards. And then I'll cover that with some Brutus Monroe Alabaster embossing powder. And then I'll heat set that with my heat gun till that is smooth and melted. And when that's all dry and ready to go, I'm going to trim down my sentiment using my Tim Holtz guillotine trimmer. And then my card bases are some Not Your Mama's heavyweight cardstock. It's a 120-pound cardstock that I have scored at 4 1/4 inches to make these side-folding A2 size cards. And I score it on both sides, as you can tell, because that just helps those fibers break up a little bit on 120-pound paper, because that is a very thick paper. For the inside of my card, I'm going to stamp one of the little kitties using some Distress Oxide ink in the color Wilted Violet. And then I'm going to stamp the sentiment using some VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink so that it's a nice deep black sentiment. So I'll do that for both. And then I'll get ready to attach my panel to the front of my card base just using that same liquid glue that I have been using. And then that'll cover the entire front of that A2 size card. And then I'll do the exact same process for the other card. And then I'll have 2 cards all ready to go. I did attach down my sentiments using some foam tape. And there they are. I just love how those ended up turning out. I hope this video inspired you to pull out your stencils and some of your wet mediums and see if you can create 2 cards using 1 stencil the way that I did. And now that we're done with the cards, who would like to see a couple pictures of the cuties that I had mentioned earlier? So this first one is Max is asleep there and his brother is on top. That's Miles. And then we have Miles on the left and Max on the right. They're sitting on Dad's lap. So I love these little babies. They're a lot of fun, and I'm sure you'll see more of them in the future. If you liked this video, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And as always, thank you so much for stopping by.